Let's examine fractions. If you look at our fraction tower, it ranges from 1 whole to the smallest fraction in size. We also have our vocabulary number words that correspond with the tower. 1 whole, halves, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, and eighths. We have some focus questions at the bottom that we want to look at very carefully and think about these during our lesson. The first one is to look at the fractions, which is the smallest in size. And we can do that in comparison to our tower as well as the fractional pieces that are to the left. Number 2, how many fractions are larger than 1/4? Number 3, is 1/6 or 1/8 larger? Number 4, what are equivalent fractions? Number 5, does 1/4 equal any of the fractions in size? And number 6, how many fifths does it take to equal 1 whole? And we want to be reminded that fractions are a part of a whole object. So let's begin to examine our fractional pieces. We have 1/8, 3/6, 1/3, 2/8, 1/4, 1/2, 1/5. Now we have a symbol. We have the equal symbol there because we're going to be discovering actually which fractions have the same amount. Now if you have your fractional pieces, you can get them out now. And you can either line up your tower like mine, or you can just use the fractional pieces as you need them. Our first question says, look at the fractions, which is the smallest. Okay, we're going to look at the different sizes and line our fraction up. We're going to look for the smallest one. So I think we're going to line these up according to from smallest to greatest or largest. Okay. So by looking at all of these fractions, one-eighth looks like the smallest one. So we're going to find that one over here. This is the smallest fraction. Now let's look. 1/3, no. 2/8, no. 1/5. 2/8. Let's see. 1/4. 1/3. We can go with the 1/2. And we can go with the 3/6. We're going to move these a little closer together so we can check them out just a little bit better. And we should be able to make some math statements about what we're looking at. So as we examine them, we can see the size. Some of these look to be about the same size. And we have quite a few things we're going to talk about. So now we have them all together. So 1/8 is the smallest. Then we have 1/5. Then we have the 2/8, the 1/4. The 1/3 is the next largest. The 1/2. And the 3/6. So, we also may need to use the word quantity. Quantity means the amount or the how many of the fractions. For example, 1/8 is just one fraction. If you look at our fractional pieces, I have 2/8. So we have a quantity or how many of the eighths. We have 2/8 and 1/8. So here we see that 2/8, of course, if we move them out, 2/8 would be larger than 1/8. So when I say quantity, we have, if you were ordering, suppose this were pieces of pizza, and they said, well, how many pieces would you like? They will say, we would like to know the quantity. Quantity meaning how many. So right now we have a quantity of 3/8, or 3 fractional pieces that are 1/8. You can word that differently. So even though 1/8 is the smallest fraction, if we add 2 more eighths, then that would be larger than 1/5. Then we have 1/4. If you look at the 2/8 and the 1/4, 1/4 is equal to 2/8. And we have 1/3 and 1/2 and 3/6. So 3/6, if we line these up just a little bit, you can see that the 3/6 is the same size as 1/2. So we're going to make a mathematical statement. Since we know that 2/8 equal 1/4, and we know that 3/6 equal 1/2, we could say that those fractions have equal amounts. So we're going to come up with our new vocabulary word, which will be equivalent. So you have the 1/4 and the 2/8, they are equal. They have the same amount. And we also have the 1/2 and the 3/6. They also have the same amount. So we can conclude that our fractions that are equal to each other in the same amount, same size, are equivalent fractions. 2/8 is equal to 1/4. 1/2 is equal to 3/6. We call those equivalent fractions, fractions that equal the same amount. Now let's go to question number 2. How many fractions are larger than 1/4? Okay, let's take our 1/4 out, and we can actually examine that. So we're going to move the 1/4 for a minute, and we can just not worry about our equal signs right now. So we're going to put the 1/4, and we want to know which fractions are larger. Okay, 1/3 is larger than 1/4. 1/2 is larger than 1/4. 3/6 is larger than 1/4. So out of our fractional pieces that we have, these are the fractional pieces that are larger than 1/4. Now you may ask me, well, why didn't I say 1/2? Well, the question says how many fractions. And 1/2 is a whole number or one complete object that is not divided. Remember, a fraction has a numerator and a denominator. So, but a new idea that just popped up, we can write 1/2 as a fraction. And I'll show you what that looks like. So 1/2 will be written 1/1 as a fraction. So we also could say that 1/2 is much larger, a larger piece than 1/4. Number 3, is 1/6 or 1/8 larger? Okay, we have the 1/6. I'm just going to take one out so that we can see the size. And is 1/6 larger than 1/8? We're going to pull the 1/8 over here to the side. Okay, is 1/6 or 1/8 larger? Well, we don't need a microscope. We can just look at that. 1/6 is larger than 1/8. Now, the thing that we can say is the larger the denominator, depending on whether or not it's a unit fraction, and a unit fraction has a denominator of 1, then the higher the denominator, the smaller the size of a fraction. So 1/6, and you have 1/8. 1/6 is larger than 1/8. Going on to number 4, we covered what are equivalent fractions. The 1/2 and 3/6, they were the same amount. So those are our equivalent fractions. And then we'll go to number 5. Number 5, does 1/4 equal any of the fractions in size? Okay, we're going to move our fractions around again, and that's what you need to do when you have your fractional pieces. You have to size them up, move them around, and just check them out, examine them. So we're going to move the 1/4. It's not the same size as 1/5. It's not the same size as 1/3. Let's try the 2/8 again. So 1/4 is the same size as 2/8. And down to number 6, how many fifths does it take to equal 1/2? Okay, our red bar is the 1/2, and let's look at our fifths. Let's go down to the fifth row, and we can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it took 5/5 to equal 1/2. Now, I think that we've covered all of our focus questions. And what you can do is you can draw these models, and you can make your fraction bar as well. Thank you for joining me today.